Charles de Gaulle was born on November 22, 1890, in Lille, France, into a patriotic and devout Catholic family with a strong interest in history and literature. His father, a teacher, played a significant role in shaping his intellectual development. De Gaulle grew up in a disciplined and nationalistic environment that emphasized duty, honor, and service to France. As a young man, he was fascinated by military history and aspired to a career in the army. In 1909, he entered the prestigious Saint-Cyr Military Academy, where he excelled in his studies and developed a reputation for intelligence, confidence, and strong opinions. He graduated in 1912, becoming a second lieutenant in the French army and joining an elite infantry regiment led by Colonel Philippe Pétain, who would later become both a mentor and a political rival. When World War I broke out in 1914, Charles de Gaulle served as a junior officer in the French army. He fought bravely in several key battles, including the Battle of Verdun, one of the bloodiest engagements of the war. In March 1916, during fierce fighting near Douaumont, he was wounded by a bayonet and captured by German forces. De Gaulle spent the rest of the war as a prisoner, held in various German camps. He attempted to escape 5 times but was always recaptured, which earned him admiration among fellow prisoners. During his captivity, he used his time to reflect on military strategy and leadership, reading extensively and debating with other officers. His experience as a prisoner deepened his understanding of Germany and modern warfare, which would later shape his military theories. By the time the war ended in 1918, de Gaulle had developed a reputation for courage, resilience, and intellectual sharpness, even though he remained relatively unknown outside military circles. After World War I, Charles de Gaulle remained in the French army and served in various staff and colonial assignments, including postings in Poland and the Levant. He continued to study military strategy and began writing about modern warfare, arguing that future conflicts would require mechanized forces and mobile tactics. These ideas, influenced by his observations during the war, were considered radical at the time and were largely dismissed by the conservative French military establishment. He published several books, most notably The Army of the Future in 1934, which proposed a new doctrine emphasizing tanks and rapid maneuvers. During the 1930s, de Gaulle also served as a lecturer at the French War College, where he was known for his sharp intellect and independent thinking. Though he held relatively modest ranks, his bold ideas and outspoken nature earned both admiration and resistance. He developed a complex relationship with Marshal Philippe Pétain, once his mentor, which would later unravel during World War II. As tensions in Europe rose toward the end of the 1930s, de Gaulle's warnings about the outdated nature of French military planning went unheeded, setting the stage for the rapid German victories to come. When World War II began in 1939, Charles de Gaulle was a colonel commanding a tank unit. In May 1940, during the German invasion of France, he briefly managed a successful counterattack at Montcornet, which brought him national attention. Promoted to brigadier general and appointed Under-Secretary of War in the collapsing French government, he strongly opposed the armistice with Nazi Germany. As France fell, he fled to London, where on June 18, 1940, he delivered a radio address urging the French to resist and continue the fight. This speech became the founding moment of the Free French movement. From exile, de Gaulle built a government in waiting and worked tirelessly to unite French resistance forces under his leadership, often clashing with both British and American officials who were initially skeptical of his authority. Despite limited resources, he insisted on France's equal status among the Allied powers and secured symbolic victories, such as the participation of Free French troops in the liberation of Paris in 1944. After the city was freed, de Gaulle marched triumphantly down the Champs-Élysées and established a provisional government, reasserting France's sovereignty. Throughout the war, he remained a fiercely independent and often difficult figure, but his determination preserved the idea of a free France and laid the foundation for its post-war revival. After World War II, Charles de Gaulle led the provisional French government and sought to restore political stability and national pride. However, he soon clashed with other political leaders over the structure of the new government. De Gaulle favored a strong executive branch to avoid the fragmentation and weakness he saw in parliamentary rule. But most parties supported a more traditional parliamentary system. Frustrated, he resigned in 1946 and withdrew from public life. Over the next decade, he remained a vocal critic of the Fourth Republic, which he saw as unstable and ineffective. During this time, he founded the Rally of the French People, RPF, a political movement that briefly gained momentum but eventually faded. Although he was largely out of power, de Gaulle's influence persisted, and he closely followed national affairs, particularly France's struggles with decolonization and the Algerian War. As the Fourth Republic sank deeper into crisis, especially over Algeria, public and military support for de Gaulle's return grew. By 1958, amid fears of a military coup and national collapse, political leaders turned to him as a unifying figure, and he was invited back to power with broad emergency powers to rewrite the Constitution, setting the stage for the birth of the Fifth Republic. In 1958, Charles de Gaulle returned to power during the height of the Algerian crisis, when France was on the brink of civil war and military rebellion. With strong support from both the public and the military, he was granted emergency powers and tasked with drafting a new constitution. This led to the creation of the Fifth Republic, which gave greater authority to the president and ensured stronger executive leadership, an institutional structure that reflected de Gaulle's long-held political beliefs. He was elected president in 1959 and quickly moved to resolve the Algerian conflict, eventually granting Algeria independence in 1962, despite fierce opposition from French settlers and some military factions. In foreign policy, de Gaulle pursued a path of national independence. He withdrew France from NATO's integrated military command, developed an independent nuclear arsenal, and frequently challenged American and British dominance. He also vetoed Britain's entry into the European Economic Community, believing it would weaken French influence. At home, he promoted economic modernization and industrial growth, but his leadership style and conservative cultural views alienated segments of the population. In 1968, massive student and worker protests erupted across France, shaking the foundations of his authority. Although he temporarily regained control, the unrest revealed growing discontent. The following year, after losing a referendum on constitutional reforms, de Gaulle chose to resign in 1969, ending his political career on his own terms. After stepping down from the presidency in 1969, Charles de Gaulle retired to his home in Colombey-les-Deux-Églises, a small village in northeastern France. He deliberately withdrew from public life, refusing to comment on political matters and declining interviews, maintaining a sense of dignity and mystery. During his final year, he focused on writing the third volume of his memoirs, reflecting on his life, leadership, and the destiny of France. Despite no longer holding office, he remained a towering figure in French national consciousness, admired by many as the man who had saved France twice, in 1940 and again in 1958. On November 9, 1970, de Gaulle died suddenly of a heart attack while playing solitaire at home. His death shocked the nation, and though he had requested a private funeral without state ceremony, millions mourned his passing. He was buried in Colombey beside his daughter Anne, in a simple grave marked with just his name and dates. His legacy endures as one of France's most iconic leaders, symbolizing resilience, independence, and national pride.